Hi, welcome to White Glove Geography. Today we're going to look at classifying development, different ways to measure economic and quality of life, those different parts of development in a country. Let's start with the economic part of the development. If a country is well developed, people might say that there are good jobs. So they're secure jobs, they're well paid jobs, there's good facilities, and we then move on to pay. Now, of course, well paid jobs, that enables us to spend money on things like housing, maybe cars. So that's to do with the economics. We're going to look at some of the physical factors now. So if these are in place, people might say that you have a good quality of life in a country. So some of the first ones might be to do with personal ones, so things that we personally consume, so water, food, so good supply of safe drinking water, good supply of food, it's accessible in a country. People might say that's got a good quality of life if we have access to those. Then we're going to talk about the environment. So we're going to talk about the climate. If it's not too hot, if it's not too cold, then people might say that's a good place to have your life. Next, natural hazards. If the place has lots of natural hazards, that's probably not going to give people a good quality of life if they're in fear, if they're susceptible to lots of natural hazards. Final one is to do with social. Now, social things, that might have to do with family, friends. It's very difficult to measure these kind of things in terms of a whole country. However, it's really important because if people feel secure in their family and friends, they feel connected with their place, then that's probably going to give them a good quality of life. How happy people are. Again, that links with family and friends, social things. Also things to do with freedom. How free people are. Freedom of speech. Are they free without fear of persecution? And that also links with security. So here we have overall lots of different things. So we've got the economics, the physical aspects of a country, how we interact that with the country as a whole, how we interact with that personally. Also the social things, so friends, family, how happy people are, freedoms and security. Of course, some of these things are linked together. So the security and the freedoms, that only happens if people have good jobs and are able to pay tax to the government. So maybe the government is able to employ good police officers and there's safe, secure aspects to that country. Okay, let's look at the next thing. We're going to look at first world and second world countries. So in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, this was a typical way of classifying different types of countries. So we have how to classify countries, first world, second world and third world countries. They're terms that we don't use now in geography, but there are terms that you might hear about the place. So for example, if people talk about first world problems. So first world countries, those would typically be places like North America, Western Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. Those would be typical first world countries. Then we have second world countries, and depending on the definition and depending which books you read, that's probably going to be countries in the past that maybe had links to communism. So we're thinking about Russia, China particularly. And then we have third world countries. These are countries that in the past particularly had low incomes. So we're talking most places in South America and in Africa. So that's a way of classifying the world in terms of first world, second world and third world. I'm going to show you another way of how in the past people would represent countries. This one is called the Brandt line, and in the 1980s the German Chancellor William Brandt, he came up with this line and he proposed that in the north of the world they're the rich countries and generally in the south of the world they're the poor countries. But we're going to put on now exactly where that line was. So it would separate off North America and South America. Now, you can see so far we've got the north, we've got the south, and this is where the bit of an exception takes place. So Japan and Australia, those are classified as the north, and here we have the south. Now, of course, there are some truths in this. So North America, Western Europe, they're quite rich. Some countries in maybe Central African area, they might be quite poor. So there is some truth in this. However, there's some major exceptions as well. More recently, China and Brazil and India, those are three countries that have had rapid economic development. So many people would argue that they should be in the north of the world compared to some of the countries that are in the north of the world that maybe actually might need to be in the south of the world. So that's the Brandt line. Essentially, this is just a historical discussion piece now, and it's one that's, as geographers we refer to, but we mainly refer to it in terms of the exceptions and use it as a discussion point. Now, we're going to look at some of the definitions and some of the exceptions. As we've discussed with the first world countries, second world countries, third world countries and the Brandt line, countries are always changing, and some of the examples we gave a moment ago were China, India and Brazil. Those are countries that are undergoing rapid change in terms of their economics, their social and their environment. Now, in GCSE courses, particularly the AQA course, we talk about LICs, lower income countries. Then we have newly emerging economies, and in those you might want to include Brazil, India and China. So those are newly emerging economies. And then we have higher income countries. The higher income countries are the ones like in North America we have the USA, in Western Europe maybe France and Germany and the UK. So there's different ways of classifying countries now. Now, here's one way that we define these countries. There are actual barriers, there are actual income definitions in terms of US dollars where these come from. So we have gross national income. So gross means total, national in terms of the nation, and we have income, that's the income of the country. And this is worked out by the total goods and services and investments abroad that the country has, divide that by the number of people, and that's GNI per person or per capita, it's sometimes referred to. Now, of course, in some countries there might be a high gross national income, but actually the quality of life might be quite low because there might be some really, really rich individuals, but it's an average, of course. So those people at the lower end of the income scale, they might be really quite poor. So we have here a summary. We've gone through the Brandt line, we've gone through the first, second world countries, and different ways of categorising countries. So we have first, second world, the Brandt line, gross national income, quality of life. We've got how to measure it in terms of economics. We've got lower income countries, newly emerging economies, and higher income countries. So that's the video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.